Christianity has been divided for over 1500 years, but Pope Francis has made more progress towards unity than anyone else. To understand how to heal church splits, we need to understand how they usually happen. The Council of Ohio clearly states that cereal is a soup. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. It dogmatically defines soup as food suspended in a bowl of water. Yeah, water, not milk. Bruh, milk is mostly water. I guess chicken soup isn't soup because chicken broth isn't 100% water either. Oh, please. Next you're gonna say a hot dog is a sandwich. Exactly! You're going to hell. So then the church usually splits, with both sides thinking they're kicking out the other, and both sides thinking they're the original ones. It makes it even harder to fix the split when both sides claim to be infallible. This has happened to the Catholic Church in real life many times. Over the years, the Catholic Church has anathematized many other churches. Anathema is a declaration that somebody is a heretic and therefore not saved. At the Council of Trent, they anathematized Protestants. At the Council of Florence, they anathematized the Eastern Orthodox. At the Council of Chalcedon, they anathematized the Oriental Orthodox. And at the Council of Ephesus, they anathematized the Assyrian Church of the East. All of these were ecumenical councils which the Catholic Church considers infallible, which means they literally cannot be wrong or undone. So Pope Francis had a big challenge trying to achieve unity. Luckily, Pope Francis was building on things that had come recently before, especially the famous Second Vatican Council in the 20th century, which called Protestants separated brethren. Big improvement from damned heretics, if you ask me. It also removed restrictions on reading Protestant Bibles and attending Protestant worship. Vatican II didn't just reach out to Protestants, but also other religions, and had a much softer tone towards other religions than previous councils, leading some to wonder whether Vatican II was actually about Christian unity, or just vague religious pluralism. Vatican II raised a problem, though. If previous councils called other churches heretical, and then Vatican II acts like they're still Christian, is there a contradiction? Pope John Paul II didn't seem to think so. He said that the controversies of the past led to anathemas bearing on persons and formulas, but the Holy Spirit lets us understand better today that many of the divisions brought about in this way were in large part due to misunderstandings. In other words, what's infallible from the councils is declaring certain beliefs to be heretical, but what's fallible from the councils is whether or not the churches that were accused of holding to those beliefs and got excommunicated for doing so actually did hold to those beliefs. You know, man, I said it was heretical to deny that cereal is a soup, but perhaps I just misunderstood your position on this. Yeah, man, I never said it wasn't a soup. All I said was that it wasn't dogmatically defined as a soup. So Vatican II and Pope John Paul II set the stage for Pope Francis, who built very important bridges with all of these churches. Pope Francis reached out a lot to the Eastern Orthodox with Patriarch Bartholomew, a prominent Eastern Orthodox leader. So is Bartholomew the Eastern Orthodox Pope? Well, kind of, but not really. You see, in the early church, Pope and Patriarch meant the same thing. They both mean father. There were 5 apostolic sees in the early church. 2 of their leaders were called popes, and the rest were called patriarchs. They all had their respective territories, but one of them, Rome, was considered first among equals. The debate is over whether the Pope of Rome was merely first among equals, or whether he was the supreme patriarch with authority over the other patriarchs. That's one of the reasons the Church split into Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox. If you believe the Pope had supreme authority over the other patriarchs, you'll think Rome has the continuity with the early Church, but if you think continuity is decided by the majority of patriarchs, you'll think the Eastern Orthodox were right. So with Rome gone, the spot for first among equals went to the Patriarch of Constantinople, and that's what Bartholomew is. So he's technically the leader of the Orthodox Church, but he can't exactly tell the other patriarchs what to do. Something important that the Catholic Church did under Pope Francis was make the Chieti document, which basically admits that the Eastern Orthodox model of the Church was more or less how the Church functioned in the first 1,000 years. Since the Catholic Church believes in development of doctrine, they're comfortable admitting that the structure of the early Church looked more like present-day Eastern Orthodoxy than present-day Roman Catholicism. What's most revolutionary is how ecumenical Pope Francis was with Protestants. He even went so far as to say it's not allowed for Catholics to try and convince Protestants to become Catholic because that's bad for the ecumenical path. So that means many Catholics on Twitter are in trouble. Pope Francis even said Protestants are right about the doctrine of justification, which was one of the major issues dividing Protestants and Catholics during the Reformation, which is a big improvement from the Council of Trent, which says the Protestant view is heretical.
Di Martin Lutero non erano sbagliate. E oggi luterani e cattolici, protestanti tutti, siamo d'accordo sulla dottrina della giustificazione. Cioè, su questo punto tanto importante lui non ne aveva.
He said Luther was medicine for the church. He had a statue of Martin Luther in the Vatican. He helped name a square in the Vatican after Luther, and participated in a ceremony that celebrated the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. He was often fine with people staying Protestant and not becoming Catholic. He allegedly told the Anglican bishop Tony Palmer to stay Anglican and fix the Anglican Church so that future unity would be possible, and allegedly told a Catholic woman to convert to Lutheranism for her Lutheran husband and even to take communion at the Lutheran Church. Pope Francis also built really important bridges with Oriental Orthodoxy. Recently, 21 Coptic Orthodox people were killed by ISIS, and Pope Francis canonized them as saints. The reason this was a bit controversial is because the medieval papal bull Unum Sanctum very clearly says there is no salvation outside the Catholic Church, which means subjection to the Roman Pope. Pope Francis said that the Nicene Creed unites all Christians, including Catholics and Oriental Orthodox Christians, and expressed a clear desire for all the churches to become one, just like they used to be. One of the last things Pope Francis did before he died was major outreach to the Nestorians when he canonized one of their saints. Saint Isaac of Nineveh was a bishop in the Assyrian Church of the East, which is the historic Nestorian Church. Now I know what you might be thinking, isn't Nestorianism heresy? It's true that classic Nestorianism, or what the church thought Nestorius was teaching, is heresy, where you deny that the words Jesus and God can be used interchangeably, and deny that Mary is the mother of God, or that God died on the cross. But recent dialogue has revealed that's not what Nestorius or the historic Nestorian Church actually taught. They will say Mary's the mother of God, it's just not in their liturgy to say so. Based on all this, it's clear that Pope Francis's model of unity is not one of pure assimilation, where everyone just leaves their churches to become Catholic, but one of a more organic reunion where people stay in their churches to fix them and work for reunion, so all of them can come together one day. This model is probably most effective, because if you tell someone to just leave their church and join yours, they're going to get defensive, and then the denominations are just going to keep fighting until Jesus comes back. But if all the denominations decide to work on their problems and work towards unity, maybe it can be achieved. One of the biggest criticisms of Pope Francis was that he was not actually trying to resolve theological differences between denominations that had divided them for centuries, but rather just promoting a religious indifferentism and pluralism, and it's not hard to think that when he has said things like this.
Sono un cammino per arrivare a Dio.
Because every religion is a way to arrive at God.
Dirò una comparazione, sono come diverse lingue, diversi idiomi per arrivare lì.
Sort of a comparison, an example would be they're sort of like different languages in order to arrive at God.
Ma Dio è Dio per tutti.
But God is God for all.
E come Dio è Dio per tutti, noi siamo tutti figli di Dio.
And if God is God for all, then we're all sons and daughters of God.
Ma il mio Dio è più importante del tuo.
But my God is more important than your God.
È vero quello?
Is that true?
C'è un solo Dio lì. E noi sono idiomi, cammino, lingue per arrivare a Dio.
There's only one God, and each of us is a language, so to speak, in order to arrive at God.
Qualcuno è Sikh, qualcuno musulmano, qualcuno hindi, qualcuno cristiano, ma sono diversi cammini.
There are different paths.
Because of this, some have concluded that Pope Francis was a liberal, but he was definitely not liberal. He said many profoundly unliberal things, like that there's too much frogiacine in the seminaries, and then he apologized for saying that, and then said it again. He was perfectly in line with Catholic teaching on social issues like abortion. So he was not liberal at all. The truth is that Catholic doctrine is always in a state of gradual development, and Francis was in perfect continuity with previous things like Vatican II and Pope John Paul II, which says Christians and Muslims worship the same God, and expanded the Church's understanding of who is really in the Church. Regardless of your thoughts on him, nobody can deny that the actions of Pope Francis will have a permanent impact on the relations between different churches. Thank you for watching this video. If you want access to some exclusive content or just to support my channel, consider subscribing to my Patreon. You'll get access to all the old live streams as well as some private videos, and depending on what tier you subscribe to, you can request whatever video you want. Also in the description will be the Redeemed Zoom or Discord server, where all denominations are welcome to fellowship and share ideas. However, it's important that if you join, you don't let this replace real-life Christian fellowship, which is why also in the description is a map of traditional Protestant churches for you to attend.